Hello everyone, Caroline here. Welcome to another video. Today I'm going to share 10 cards that I created with the Rosie Studio Salt and Sunset collection. You may recognize this collection from the May Spellbinders Karten Kit. It's the same collection, but for my cards I'm using the 12 by 12 papers and not the 6-inch paper pad. Okay, let's get started. Card number 1. So for my first card I'm using a card base from my stash which has this very tan color, very peachy. I used a bunch of die cuts and I use 3 different pattern papers here. So the first one is the one for my background. It has this beautiful flowers on it. And I'm just going around the edge with tea dye to give it a little more beachy look. And then I have those 2 strips here and I'm just gonna rough up the edges. One is this blue color and one has this weave on it. And I'm just roughing this up a little bit and go also around with the tea dye. And then I'm ready to put my background. I glue this on with liquid glue. And then I'm looking where I'm going to place my strips. And I'm going to make a little mark and cut it to size. And I attach this with foam tape. And then I'm cut the smaller strip here and I will add this on top. And this time I just put it flat onto the other strip. Now here's my background ready and I'm just starting now to assembling my die cuts. And this collection comes with so many beautiful flowers and leaves. You will see a lot of cards with flowers and leaves. But I just love to arrange them and just, anyway, I'm always using flowers and this is just such a wonderful collection. And what I also love about these is they don't have a white border. I love die cuts when they're just cut to the image and have no white border. It's just, for me, it just makes such a difference. And here I'm just fiddling how I'm gonna place my leaves. And I add some with foam tape and some I just glue flat on to give it some dimension. And for this card I decided just to go with the white flowers to pick up the flowers that are from that you see on the background paper here. So, and then is when my arrangement is done, I have those little sentiments that comes with the die cuts and I'm just choose 3 that I really liked and that go well together. And I just framed them on some scrap foil card stock that I have. And I just add them with foam tape to my card. And then for final embellishing, I'm using my Nuvo drops here and add some sparkle. And I also add some glossy accent to the flowers. And here is the finished card. Card 2. Now here's my second card. I have again a bunch of die cuts and this time I chose all those beachy accessories and these kind of match that one pattern paper that I choose for my background. And I'm just making a little mark here. You can see how I cut my papers. I don't measure, I just use my eye here, and I just make marks and then cut it to size. And here you can see I mounted already my background paper, and I etched it also with tea dye. And now I have this stamp in my stash. This is literally from a Christmas stamp set, and I will show it here. And I just stamped that postcard onto that other pattern paper, and I also went around with my sponge here and gave it a border, and then I glued this on flat onto my background in a little angle. And I just want to give this card kind of feel like sending a postcard from summer vacation. So I add those sentiments to my card, to my postcard here, almost like an address. And then I create those little 3D elements. And this is such a nice way to use those double up those die cuts. I use this technique all the time, and I love those die cut set because they always have each die cut twice in the package, so I really love that. So here I'm arranging my elements. I'm putting this surfboard and the sandals and the suit, the bathing suit on the bottom, and then I'm adding the photograph, the camera, the glasses and the hat on top, and I give it also more dimension with the glossy accent and some stickles for some sparkle. And here's my finished card. Card 3. So here's my third card, and here I cut away. I made a A2 size card into a square card, which is 4¼ by 4¼ and I used some dark blue cardstock from my stash and 2 pattern papers. And here you see how I prepared my die cuts. I doubled up that anchor and used glossy accent, and I did the same on one of those wreaths. And then I'm just adding my dark blue cardstock first. This I wanted to give this a very nautical feel. And then I'm adding this pattern paper, and then I'm adding my frame on top with foam tape to give this more dimension. And then I'm adding my die cuts here, and I want this little bird, or that's not a bird, I think it's this, yeah, I don't know what kind of bird it is, but anyway, I put that bird, I want this to stand on that anchor, so I again used 2 die cuts and doubled them up, and then I just place my anchor and add this little birdie on top. Then I'm adding foam tape and do the same here with this die cut. And before I place it, I cut out like a little circle out of the like a gold color, and I just wanted to bring in more shine, and I placed it in the background, and then I placed the die cut and my sentiment, and I also used those little stars that came with the die cut set and arranged them around. There you see. And then I'm using again stickles and add some sparkle and also some glossy accent on the birdie. And here is my finished card. Card 4. Now for my next card, I'm using a big 6x6 card base, and I cut this leaf paper And I also used a piece from my stash. It's a specialty paper. It's that pink color that matches perfectly my die cuts. And the first thing I do is I rough up the edge of my outer paper here, and I'm adding this to my card. Then I'm adding with foam tape my specialty square, which is a little bit smaller. It's about an inch smaller. And then I'm adding my other pattern paper here, again with foam tape, so here's already a nice layering going on. And then I'm using my sentiment and I'm adding it to a piece of gold foil cardstock, and I used the die from my stash to frame it on this little scalloped edge, scalloped circle. And now I'm doing a lot of arrangement here again, and I'm using the flowers and the leaves. I have so many left, so I thought I'm making a nice arrangement. This is a very nice big card, and so this will work perfectly for that. Now usually when I make arrangement, I always start from the center and work my way out. And in this case I placed my sentiment first so I can see where I can grow, or where I can place where I built my flowers. So it's nice and even. So they are all placed. I used liquid glue, I used foam tape, and now I'm adding some iridescent dream drops in pink, in that soft pink color, and add this around, and I give it a little the flowers a little bit more dimension with the euro drops in this light pink color. And here's the finished card. Card 5. Now for this card I wanted to use this beautiful paper here, and I thought it's a nice idea for the gradient that's on the paper to showcase that on a slimline card. And I also cut myself a frame from a die, and here I'm using like a white color and then an iridescent filler mixed medium. So I want to have some white paint with a little bit of iridescent shine or pearl shine, and then I'm just using like a little sponge tool and a stencil, and then just add some white circles, and I want this to be kind of looking like the ocean, so I wanted to give it a look. I want this to look like air bubbles. And I don't want it to be perfect, I just want this to be just on the background very slightly. Now I'm using that little fish that comes with the stamp set, and here is my frame, and I'm just putting it there to kind of figure out how to place my die cuts. And here I stamped out this seahorse, and I colored this with pixie gold and copper and bronze colors. And here's my little fish, and I'm using just the salty ocean distress ink and randomly place those fishes or those fish into the water. And again, I'm not going for perfection, I want them to be just very slightly be seen. And then I am go around with the same blue to get rid of the white from the paper. And then I'm placing this onto my card with glue, with liquid glue, and make sure it's all nice and evenly placed. And here I used a bunch of shells that came in the kit, so I want to do like a shell floor, like pretending that's the ocean, and I want to have almost building up like a coral reef here. Lots of dimension and different shapes of shells and corals and colors. So I'm doing this first on the bottom, and then I'm placing my frame on top with foam tape. And then I'm building more coral reef here. I'm using this big die cut and then the smaller one. And my little star here on this side. So I want this to have a lot of texture and dimension. Then I'm having have the sticker sheet with the shells embellishing, and I'm use those as well. And then I'm adding I was deciding if I'm using my seahorses or the one that came with the die cuts, and I decided to go with the one that I stamped. And I'm adding them with foam tape. I'm using 3 different ones, and I placed them so I have still on the top right place for my sentiment. And I'm going around and I'm adding another few shells here and there, and then I'm stamping that sentiment that comes on the stamp set, which says relax, you earned it. And I'm just using that piece of paper that came out when I cut out the frame. And then I'm just cutting this to size and go around again with that blue color and add some foam tape, and then add this to my card here. Now I will also add a few more shells here, and then I'm adding, of course, Nuvo drops. And here is my finished card. I think this would be a wonderful card to give to someone with like a spa gift certificate or something like that. So card 6. Again, I have a little card here, 4¼ by 4¼ and again I cut this just from a A2 card, and I'm using here my ruler to cut a scalloped edge, a rough scalloped edge, and I want to create a little beach scene here. So I'm just double up those 2 paper strips to give this more like a beach feeling, like the sand on the beach. Cut this to size, and then I have those die cuts here. That is umbrella, and I actually for this one I'm just cut off the other one, and then just adding this with foam tape to make it more 3D like. And I'm using this sentiment from the die cut set, and here I'm just giving this beach bag a little dimension, and add this again, double this up. The same with the beach ball here. And then I'm assembling my card. Cut out my sentiment to size, and I place it first so I can see how I arrange my other things. So I glued on my umbrella, I glued on my bag, my ball, and just create a little beach scene. Here a few more shells. And here I'm using another more Nuvo drops, and I just randomly arrange those drops, and then I'm adding also glossy accent for that ball to give it more dimension and shine. And here is my finished card. Card 7. So for this card I'm using a blue card base, and I cut already this one piece of pattern paper to size, and then I used the Daisy May die and cut myself a window, and I also used the 2 sentiments from the stamp set, and I stamped them out in like a Versafine brown, dark brown color. And now I'm starting by attaching this piece of pattern paper to my card base. And then I'm making sure it's all nice and flat. And then I am using again my ruler, and this time I'm using the big edge and create scalloped edge here. And my intention is to create almost like a window looking out from a room. And this pattern paper is supposed to be like a curtain. And it's just so you can see it from the side. And then I'm placing my window on top. There, so it's almost like looking out to a patio, summery patio. Now I'm adding my sentiment again first, so I can figure out how I'm gonna do my arrangements. And then I had these flowers which were in those paper bags, but I cut this away just using the flowers, and I'm gonna arrange them kind of like sticking them underneath the scalloped edge paper here. Cut this to size and place it like I think it would work. And I always cut my die cuts if they're not fit like I want them to fit. I just go ahead and I just cut them to size. And then I place the other flowers here. I'm using some foam tape. And of course I'm adding all my shells, those teeny tiny ones. I don't want to waste them. And I think they look nice as an accent there. Then I cut out my others sentiment, and I place it on a gold foil cardstock. And here I'm just fiddling how I'm gonna place my sentiment and my shells. Glue everything in place. And here is my other sentiment. I'm gonna stick this underneath those 2 flowers. Just finish up my arrangement here, making sure everything is nice and tight and glued on. And then I'm using this Frosted Lake Dream Drops and just add a few dots on the white frame. So give it more like a watery, dreamy look. And here is the finished card. Card 8. So for this card I am using again a bunch of die cuts, and I cut out this paper rose die as an accent, and I used some brown cardstock for that to match the papers. And for my card base, I'm using again this beige tan color that I have. And here I want to use this die cut with the nice saying on it, and I'm going to round 2 of the corners, and I want to frame this on this brown cardstock, so I'm figuring out the size first, and then I cut this out. And I'm doing the same here. I'm rounding 2 corners, and then I'm going around with the ink, and then I'm placing the sentiment on top with some foam tape. This will literally be my focal point for this card. And then I'm using again this beautiful basket weave paper here, and go around with the walnut stain to to ink the edge, and then I am placing it with liquid glue on my card base. And then I have my tool here, and I rough up the edge of the pattern paper that I used to put my sentiment on. And now I'm just adding this extra piece. I just wanted to give it more texture, this card, and I'm adding this on, and then I'm adding the other piece, and I'm off-center this a little bit, and I cut away the excess here. And then I'm using my little flowers here, and again these flowers that live in a vase, and I'm just cutting away the vase and just using the flowers, and I'm gonna arrange them around my sentiment. I'm using liquid glue for this. I'm going to do the same on the top here. And then let the flower come over the sentiment a little bit. And add those flowers there. Then I have those drops that came with the collection, and I'm adding those green ones, like one big one on the top and the smaller one on the bottom. For a final touch, I'm adding some Nuvo drops. These are the Euro drops again in this pink color. And this is the finished card. Card 9. So for this card, I'm starting out and I'm creating my own background here. I am using some distress ink here and this Caribbean blue, and then I have also some distress inks, this cracked pistachio, and also Mermaid Lagoon. And I'm just place this on a piece of a sheet of acetate that I'm using for mixing, and I'm just spritz water on this and let that mix a little bit, and then I'm placing this onto my card here, and I just smoosh this, and this will be my first layer of color. So this is a very soft mix, and I'm gonna dry this, and then I will add another layer of color. Then this way, now I'm going the other way around. Now I'm placing my color again, and this time I'm using more peacock feather, actually not maroon, and place it on my acetate sheet, and now I smoosh it the other way so I get a more randomly drippy look. I want to create kind of like a coral underwater scene, so this looks perfect. Now I'm using the stamp set and the little fish to add more. To my floor here, to my ground, to my sea ground. And I'm using the peacock feather, that nice blue. And I'm just stamping this around to give this like a ground. I use the same here with the cracked pistachio, so it's the same color that I used for smooshing. And then last thing is I'm adding a few fish there. And that's it. And then I'm adding my glue, and I will add this to my card base. And for this card I used like a cream colored card base. I'm making sure that's nice and even placed. And then I'm bringing in this die that's from Elizabeth's Craft, this bubble die, and I bring in a stamp set from Heidi Swab. I want to use the unique, you are unique sentiment, so I'm using the stamps, and I stamped this out on a piece of vellum with further mark, and then I embossed this in silver. Then I'm cutting this to size. And I still had one of the seahorses left that I created, so I will use this for this card here. And first I'm adding my die that I cut out with some holographic paper. And I'm also adding a few of those seashells. And then I'm adding my seahorse here with some foam tape. And then I'm adding my sentiment. I'm just adding a little bit of glue behind the letters, and I stick this on the background. And of course, for more sparkle, I'm adding some diamond stickles. I'm add them everywhere to give this a nice sparkle. And here's the finished card. Card 10. So for my last card, I use this sentiment that I framed already on a piece of gold foil cardstock, and I created this background here. I used the walnut stain and this embossing folder and ran this to my die cut machine. Then I add some speckled egg and also some cosmic shimmer gold shimmer powder. Then I cut out a piece of this beautiful pinkish coral pattern, and I stamped with Versamark the little fish on it. This is my one of the kind fish, and I heat embossed this, and now I'm using the Versamark, the brown color, and add more fishes so this fish doesn't swim alone. And I'm randomly just put this on the background, and then I'm using the distressed velvet. What is this? Yeah, Victorian velvet that matched the background color, and I'm adding a few more of those fishes. Now when I'm done, I'm add this to my card, but I will also go around with my dauber here and give this a little edge, and then I glue this on with liquid glue, and then I'm using this piece that I created and I rip it to pieces. I want to add a top and a bottom, and I want this to have a lot of texture. So I'm adding foam tape to the card base, and then I'm add the piece of cardstock that I want to use, and then I place it first, and then I cut away the excess, and I'm using the strips that I have left and add even more texture. And I'm doing the same on the top. Again, I'm cut away the excess here. And for this card, I used like a pink card base. And again, I'm doing with the leftovers here. I'm creating a little bit more texture by adding some pieces here and there. As that one little spot that I want to cover a little bit better, and I also want to create like a little something for my sentiment. So I am just figuring out how I place this. Here you go, and then I do the same on the top there, adding a little bit more. Just to give this more texture. I just love this look of this gold with the speckled egg and the brown. It's just a pretty color combo. And then I'm adding my sentiment with foam tape, and for a little bit of a blue, to bring out that blue from the speckled egg, I'm adding one of the shells that has blue in it, or actually, yeah, two. This other one has this lighter violet color, and add those. And I also have this pink shell that stuck behind this edge, and then I'm adding those sparkly glue dots here. I'm adding them here and there. I think they go perfect with the background. And here is my finished card. Has lots of dimension. I really love this card. So my friends, here are my cards again. I hope you are enjoyed this video, and as usual, I hope you found some inspiration. If you have this collection, if you don't have it, I hope that you can get anyway inspiration from it, maybe using stuff that you have in your stash, and can use some of the techniques that I'm using. I would like to hear from you. What card is your favorite? If you have questions, just leave me comments. I will happy to answer them. And of course, as usual, I wish you well and stay safe, and I see you in my next video. Until then, bye.